Made moonshine liquor just like I do. If it hadn't been for moonshine liquor, you sell a jar of liquor, it'd put some bread on the table. That's about the only way anybody could get by back in them days. This world went to hell in a handbasket. I'm telling it like it is.
Hey there, freedom fighters. I'm coming back at you with another one. Today's video topic is going to be the story of two men that recently showed up in my news feed. That's what I was doing. I was searching around this weekend, just looking at stuff, actually the other day, but I don't really post stuff on Sunday because it's the Lord's Day, and, I try not to get political or really dive into any news or, anything. Sunday is the Lord's Day and a me day, right? It's time to take a time out from all the garbage and the 24/7 news stream and all that. But, I did get on there and look at a couple things, and Marvin Sutton popped up in my timeline. And if you don't know him, more famously known as Popcorn Sutton, you might have heard of that name. And if you don't know about him and his story, well, I guess I'm about to tell it. But he's an old legendary moonshiner, and, recently made more famous by a couple documentaries, and he was on the show Moonshiners, I believe, on the Discovery Channel. I don't know if any of you guys watch that, but I've caught a few episodes. It's pretty good. But anyway, his story is that's what he's doing is moonshining. And, one of the plots of the show is they're always, running from the law. It's one of the old, outlaw professions, I guess you could call it. But which I never really understood, at least of lately, because, didn't we end Prohibition? Which is really weird because it's like we ended Prohibition only to create another form of it where it was completely outlawed, and there was no alcohol whatsoever, to legalization, but only through, government agencies. Which is the same thing now you're seeing with, all the pot farms and stuff like that, where it's been legalized. At least it's not federally, but by the states it's been legalized. But, people were like, oh, the only reason it was illegal is because it was, they said the cartel cash crop or whatnot. And, they can't have people growing their own or making their own money. The government has to be the middleman. And we all know they're the biggest criminals of all. They're the biggest drug dealers and, corruptors and criminals of all time. So they have to get their hand in it. So, that's what, as far as the alcohol, prohibition goes, they said, okay, well, you can sell it through us. And that's what all your liquor stores and stuff like that are licensed dealers, essentially. And they say, it's all because of safety and regulation, which is the same thing with the FDA. We talked before about how they arrest, Amish farmers and, small town people selling their livestock and, raiding, farmers markets and curbside, vegetable and fruit vendors and all this stuff because they're like, oh, well, it's not safe. Well, you and me all know that's a load of BS, and it's because they can't, have freedom. They can't have people doing this thing on their own. There needs to be the middleman. And, as far as the whole thing, we make sure that it's, clean and the facilities are run to a certain standard and, that way you don't get sick. Well, I mean, people still get sick with all the stuff they got, all these processed fake, goods and chemicals and stuff they add to it. And, I mean, recently we had the McDonald's quarter pounder thing, and you always hear about, a recall on the lettuce, or what was it, onions a little while ago, and E. coli outbreaks, and now you got the whole bird flu thing, and they're slaughtering the chickens and all that. Um, but people still get sick on their stuff, and people for thousands of years have been going to their local, farmers, their neighbors, and purchasing goods, and people know, right? The word of mouth goes around. They're like, this guy's got good stuff. He's raising his animals right. He's, a good farmer, and if they choose to go there on their own fruition, I mean, that's freedom, and that's how the system works. But that's not the system they want. Anyway, I went off on a completely other side tangent there, but this all came from alcohol prohibition and moonshiners. Getting back to Popcorn Sutton, but that's what he was doing. He got caught up. Obviously, he was sentenced to court, or he was summoned to court, where he was getting sentenced. I think they gave him 18 months, I think was what it was. It was just short of 2 years. Um, I can't remember exactly his age at the time, but he was an old man, and he said he was, on the way out the door anyway, and he wasn't feeling that prison time. So, he sadly self-deleted, which I don't support, or advocate for in any way. And it's a very sad situation. I mean, I can kind of understand, but at the same time, I don't understand. And I've seen a lot of people go this way. There's been a couple stories within our own community that have gone this way. And I mean, people say, oh, well, yeah, they went out on their own terms and stuff like that. Um, but I'm like, at the same time, man, you got to keep up the fight. And if you're going to be dead anyway, why not make them do the job for you? Right? They're going to do it anyway. If you don't show up to court and then they give you your sentencing and you don't show up to self surrender that day, you're going to get a warrant. They're going to come out for you. They're going to kick down your door, and I guess that's what people are trying to avoid, right? They want it on their own timeline. They don't want the pre-dawn. They don't want to get flashbanged at 4 a.m., 5 a.m. in the morning, and get their ticket punched unexpectedly. They probably want to down, in his case, down some of that homemade moonshine, and think happy thoughts and reflect on his life and go out, on his own terms. But again, man, it's just not the right thing. My attitude has always been, if they want war, then let them bring the war to you. Let them fight the war. Make them pay for the war that they brought to your doorstep. Sadly, you see a lot of cases like this. There was a Portland veteran bar owner, I believe, that ended up getting in some kind of tussle or some argument with some Aunt Quifa guys, and he had to take one out. And sadly, I think it was kind of the same situation. He didn't want to go through the whole court process and the whole thing where he's like, man, these people are going to try to pin me up. And you saw what happened to, I believe his name was Perry. I get these two mixed up all the time with the recent Marine veteran in New York, Daniel Penny. I forget the other guy's name, but I think it was maybe Matt Perry, or I can't remember, but he's also a veteran. He was an Uber driver, and he came across an Aunt Quifa protest, and he had to put this guy down that stopped his car in the middle of the road with an AK-47, and, he put the guy down, and, he got through the leftist kangaroo court system there in Austin, Texas, and they put his ass in prison. I want to say the sentence was like 20-something years, but he ended up getting pardoned, so I believe he is released. But the whole process, man, and again, like I said, man, we are essentially in a civil war, and this is only going to pick up, where people are going to be forced to defend themselves against these Marxists, against these communists, against these, brainwashed just sheep who are against freedom. And ultimately, the term is statists, right? Um, and these people who want to take away your rights and all this stuff. Again, gun confiscation. When these politicians, sign these gun control laws and they're going to take the guns away, and you get caught with your whatever it is, grandpa's, old revolver or whatever. Even if it was your lawfully purchased modern day sporting rifle, those cops are going to follow those orders, and when they sentence you to prison, people are going to think, oh, well, it's time to take myself out. Some other people are going to go the other route, as of Waco or something like that. Again, they're going to bring the war to your doorstep. They're going to try to kill you anyway. I would highly recommend not doing it yourself. But sadly, that's the way it went. Rest in peace to Popcorn Sutton. Just another case of, government overreach, and, you didn't have to mess with that guy, man. An old dude living out his life in the mountains. Again, and you got all these people in the streets doing all this other crap. But, that's your biggest threat, and that's who they're going after. Which, again, is what I've always said, the so-called patriots and, all these people, they don't put up a fight, and that's why they're targets. You don't see them going into the hood and forcing all those Glock switches and gun control, in New York or Chicago, and all these, Oakland or in the hood, essentially. You don't see them constantly raiding and, arresting people for gun violations in there, because they know what happens. But yeah, man, and then we got, what was the other guy that came up? Gary Plauché or whatever, I forget how you say his name. Gary Planch, I'm not sure. But the guy, you've probably seen tons of gun memes on him, Dark Gary, with the, glowing red eyes, who took out his son's kidnapper. He didn't die yesterday, but yesterday was the anniversary of when he took the guy out. And, I saw his case. Supposedly they charged him for second-degree murder, which it was clearly first degree. So I don't even know how he got that charge. I mean, he definitely planned it and everything. But he pleaded down to manslaughter. But I didn't find anything on it, which I'm pretty sure that's a felony. But so they barred this guy from firearm ownership, which, tell me why. I mean, everyone was pretty much in agreement that this guy did the right thing. I mean, even like all the courts and everything like that were like trying to get him the littlest of charges as possible, which they ultimately did. He didn't even see a day in jail. He got like, I think they said 5 or 7 years probation. But the big problem I has is if they charged him with felony, and barring him from firearm ownership, that's a crime in itself, because the guy deserved no punishment. But the other thing I noticed was it was in an airport. So that was like, I was like, when did airports become, federal like gun-free zones? Because that's another thing they do nowadays. They try to charge you up on everything. Nowadays, some leftist activist judge would be like, "Oh, he had a firearm in the airport," on top of the murder charge or whatnot. But again, man, it's all this stuff. What was the other thing I wanted to get to? Oh yeah, on the Moonshiners thing, they also arrested this guy named Tickle on that show, and he had a sawed-off shotgun. The same thing. Supposedly Randy Weaver. Well, Randy was making them. Well, I don't know. Tickle might have sawed his off, but he wasn't selling them. He just had one. And I think he was sentenced to like 5 years. And again, the route Tickle could have taken, he could have fought it. He, gladly he didn't self-delete. But he took his prison sentence, and, there should be no prison sentence. right? Obviously, a tyrannical government, they're looking to come after these guys because of who they are and the moonshining. If they don't catch you on making the liquor, they're going to try to get you for something else. But firearms aren't even a charge. Shall not be infringed, but they once again enforced it anyway, and we deserve what we allow, which will probably be another video. I wanted to talk to that about for a while as well. You know, all this stuff that we allow to go down, and it continues to go down because we allow it. But man, I'm gonna leave it there, man. Until the next one, you know what it is. We are on our own. Nobody's coming to save us. So get right with God, because only God can save you. Freedom Fighters out.